Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Pressplay Podcast. Happy New Year to our viewers and Jerred. Jerred is the founder of OneCourt, based in the US, and they are disrupting the way sports is consumed for visually impaired citizens, customers, fans, what have you. Welcome, Jerred.
Hey, thanks so much, man. Excited to catch up and talk some more.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I think honestly, this is probably one of the most interesting startups in the sports tech space that I've had the pleasure of interacting. So super cool stuff that you guys are building. So Jerred, why don't you introduce yourself and what made you start OneCourt?
Yeah, I mean it's where everything started for us. Actually, the inspiration for the project was a video that I saw. It was a blind person at a soccer match, and he was sitting in the stands with a woman who was watching the game, and at the same time moving his hands across a game board to represent the action. So it was through touch that he was engaging with the content, engaging with the game. And that really stuck with me. It stood out that, wow, like people are experiencing the game in their own way. And it resonated with me as someone who grew up with visual challenges. I adapted to the game in a different way than many other fans did, whether that was playing sports like wrestling, where, touch and other senses were more primary, or in watching sports. I would sit close to the TV and maybe pick up on player positions rather than numbers, right? Because I couldn't see them. So I think that really primed my heart for this work, and seeing that video was just like a lightning rod moment of, okay, clearly there is something here and we can expand the impact of sports through touch. So for listeners that aren't familiar with what we've built, it's essentially we call it a tactile broadcast, and it's this new layer of broadcasting that's built from the data up, and it's not visual, it's not audio. Well, it is audio, we'll get to that, but it's primarily touch based. So you can imagine watching the game with your fingertips using one of our haptic tablets. So it's about the size of a laptop. Most fans place it on their lap or on a table if they're at home, and they're feeling the details of the court or play surface on the surface of our device, but then they're feeling vibrations underneath that correspond to the gameplay. So as we describe it, it's like watching the game with your fingertips.
That's awesome, man. And which year did you start?
Yeah, so we actually started at the University of Washington. There's a group of students there that we came together in 2021, actually, but it wasn't until we graduated, we incorporated the company and took it full time as soon as we graduated in 2023. So I would say, yeah, it's been a few years since then, and we started to scale the project. So we're no longer, I should correct that, we're no longer a project. We're a full-fledged startup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've always heard of people who are visually impaired or that in that category. They've tried commentary, audio descriptions, etc. And I'm assuming that sort of stuff doesn't completely cut it, right? This is a much more immersive experience for that fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and it is the current solution, right? Most fans in our community are engaging with the game through audio alone. So they
Right.
might be listening on the radio or having a friend or family member describe what's happening. And the
Mhm.
two main challenges with that, one is if you're in person, there's actually a large delay oftentimes. So you might be 30 seconds behind the action, which if anyone goes to an event and you're 30 seconds behind, like you're practically not there, in the sense that everyone around you is reacting and you're waiting to hear what happened. So it's an incredibly frustrating experience in venue. But on top of that, no matter where you are listening, whether you're in the venue or at home, there's a spatial limitation, right? It's really hard to describe the position of a ball and all the players and what's happening. And it
Mhm.
turns out that it's not so difficult actually to communicate that detail through touch. It's far more intuitive. So the combination of audio and haptics creates a holistic experience for fans that have been excluded from participating in many ways. And I think, sighted fans and any fan can resonate with, man, what if I couldn't experience the game with all of my senses? What would that be like? And I think it's you can empathize that way and understand, like, wow, there's a lot to be desired if you're missing some sensory channels.
Right. And so this is interesting. So let's say I'm a fan. I go to a stadium. So then, what's the user experience behind the product?
Yeah. So, and that kind of brings us to how we launched the product. So,
Okay.
we did this strategically. We launched the product actually in partnership with venues and sponsors. So, this
Hmm.
is actually available to fans for free in venues. So, if you buy a ticket to the game, you can use OneCourt. And of course, we're not everywhere yet, but within the US, we're starting to scale. So, we're in about a third of the NBA right now. And Ticketmaster is actually the presenting sponsor on that. So,
Hmm.
huge partners of ours, and they've been able to seed this adoption and see their fans that maybe wouldn't have gone to games in the past, or totally new fans are coming into the arena. So basically, what it looks like on game day, fans are checking out one of OneCourt's devices at guest services, and they may have reserved it ahead of time. They may have just showed up, and they're taking it to their seat. It usually comes in a tote bag with some headphones, very similar to other assistive technologies. So whether you could imagine picking up a wheelchair or picking up a sensory kit or a
Hmm.
listening device, like it's very similar to that, and that there's an existing channel for this. And
Hmm.
yeah, take it to your seat, you plug in your headphones, and you're on your way. We see most people, they put their hands on it and they're jumping into the action pretty immediately. So
That's awesome. I love the go-to-market strategy. I mean, the user experience is tied in to the GTM in a way, right? Because you have sponsors or folks like Ticketmaster who are helping distribute this.
yeah.
Um, and so, talk us through the strategy, because I think a lot of startups that are listening or watching this would have learned by now that tech is one piece of it, but distribution is where most of the holy grail is.
Yeah. And for us, it was really there were three or four reasons why starting in venue made a lot of sense. And some of those were just constraints, right? Like we're building hardware, and everyone says hardware is hard. And for us, being able to deploy a small number of units in a real world scenario and actually generate exposure and revenue from those units was incredibly meaningful, right? I mean, that gets to the other pieces, right? Being able to reach a massive audience, like the exposure that has come from our B2B launches have been, I think, beyond what we ever imagined. So I guess the combination of hardware is challenging. There's a huge advantage with low volume deployment for us. Then, and it gives us the time to mature the product, right? Like we're
Hmm.
not necessarily rushing to scale this hardware. We're able to continue iterating and building new versions as we're getting feedback and continue releasing those versions, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, the other point being exposure. Massive exposure has been super valuable for our business. People learn about OneCourt, investors, new teams. It's how we've gotten so many of our inbound opportunities has come from, oh, I saw that Instagram video or I saw that on LinkedIn. And people have really, I think a lot of people know about us, which is great. So I would say
Yeah.
those are the two main points.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I think also you are a startup. You obviously have you want to make money and make a profit, but at the same time, this is also doing good. You know,
Yeah.
to the larger public and to society in general. So I'm sure brands want to associate with you guys.
Yeah, I think like people largely, everyone we meet resonates with the vision that sports are for everyone. Whether it's our partner Ticketmaster or the many teams that we work with, they all believe that, and we all
Mhm.
share that together. And I think it's an expression of that belief to see our work in stadiums, to see it online. It's really an honor, I think, to steward that vision. And yeah, we're just super proud, and I think that's partly what has enabled this so quickly.
Nice, nice. And in terms of taking a step back and looking at the product and double clicking there, I mean, how did you guys design the product? Was there like a focus group or some inputs from folks who are visually impaired to say that, okay, this is the way it would work?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a huge saying in accessibility that I think we all live up to and try our best to live up to, is that, design with, not for.
Mm,
It's all too often, and this is a lesson that extends, I think, far beyond accessibility, right?
mm,
In any business case, in any product design, you you should be living with the customers, right? You should be
absolutely.
experiencing that pain as best you can, extending your understanding. I think a good way to think about it is like, what is your proximity to the problem you're solving? And for us, many people, have distance from what it's like to be visually disabled over the course of your life, or a portion of your life, or even a situation. But, working with people who do have those experiences every day is
Hmm.
incredibly valuable. So I think early on for us on the product side, what that looked like was, partners in design, right? Working with people, students at the UW who we knew who were blind or visually disabled, and um, working alongside them to test ideas and come up with how we might approach this. And one of the very first ideas was just, how do we communicate motion through vibration? Like,
Mm.
how do you animate haptics? And that was really, I think, the first big question. And once we had I think, a solid answer on that, things just started rolling, and the answers have been compounding since then, in that direction of like tactile animation.
Awesome. And is there a way for you guys to collect feedback from folks who are using the product? Because software is easier for people to use and consume and immediately share feedback. Hardware is like you're in a stadium, you're consuming it, and then feedback might be a little later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd say it's somewhere that we're continuing to build on, because I think our feedback loops have changed. Like, we found that, like, post-game surveys, for example, a tool that we used to use, was actually creating a lot of friction, for our customers, for our users. And it's like, how do we make it easier to give us feedback? Like, we want it to be super easy. So, one way that we're actually starting to pilot this now is, on device surveying, quick questions here and there. Maybe it's at halftime. How's your experience so far? And rating that, right? So I think there's ways that we've started to interject things throughout the experience that are not disruptive, but also really valuable for us. And also just creating incentives for people to give feedback, right? Like, we've been surveying on price sensitivity and other details that, yeah, we can run a sweepstakes, and we can incentivize people to share their thinking with us. And it's ultimately really valuable.
Okay, awesome. And so, just to also understand the product a little more, um, you essentially have the sports broadcast that you need to plug into, I'm assuming, right? Which actually, like, walk us through that entire workflow.
Yeah. So, and this is really special because it speaks to the timing of this solution. It's like, a lot of people ask, why OneCourt didn't happen 10 years ago. And a lot of it does have to do with the investment and the development of the data tracking solutions, right? Everyone, I'm sure in this podcast audience, many people will be aware of solutions like next gen stats and the ball tracking, the telemetry tracking that's
Mm,
happening across professional sports, right? We know
mm,
where the ball is, we know where the players are, and we know that detail extremely quickly. And what
mhm,
we've been able to do is essentially build this tactile alternative broadcast from that data set. So when I can walk you through it with a given league. So let's say we're starting with a league we've never worked with. It all
mhm,
starts with the data. So we're accessing their APIs. That's usually a business relationship, it's a technical relationship. And then essentially we're able to build a product, a
mhm,
version of our broadcast for their sport. So we're basically translating their data into a rich haptic experience. So that does take time and
mhm,
development, but we've we've gotten fast at it, and we started to build what we call this haptic language that we can transfer from sport to sport. But essentially, that's, I'd say, the heavy lifting is that
Mm,
is the access to the data and the translation. And then from there, it's very similar to streaming. So
mm.
we're able to automate most everything so that come game time, it's kind of like changing a channel, turning on your TV, and you've got the game streaming to your hands.
That's awesome. So this could technically work, of course, in a stadium. But if I'm sitting at home and if I'm watching, my family's watching something on television, but I want to experience it on your board, then that's possible.
Absolutely, and we're already doing it. So yeah, it's a very critical part of our mission, and it's something that fans have been asking for since day one. It's like, and I think everyone resonates with the fact that most sports are watched from the comfort of our homes,
Yeah.
and the off chance that we are attending a game in stadium, or those are special moments, but they're not everyday moments. And I think
Right.
being able to deliver OneCourt regardless of where people are, whether in stadium or at home, super important. So yeah, we've started doing that. We're working with the leagues closely on building those solutions. There's definitely some unique challenges to that, but we're getting close.
Wow. Nice. And so going back to the point of looking at a sport, like let's say okay, you do basketball. What sports do you do currently?
Yeah, we've designed for 4 sports. We do football, American football,
Mhm.
basketball, and baseball. So
Okay.
those are the 4 we've done. And of course, there's many fans asking for more. We get a lot of requests for hockey, cricket. We get tennis, NASCAR, F1. We get a lot of requests, but it's kind of one at a time for us, and kind of taking the markets as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see what's out there for cricket. I don't think there's anything out there yet, but that's something that, I mean, there's a massive population of folks who are watching and consuming cricket. Um, but yeah, interesting. And so, in terms of the technical challenge, just wanted to understand that there's a lot of moving pieces from what it sounds like, or at least it
Yeah.
might have been the case earlier, the early part of the
For
journey.
sure. Yeah.
What was the hardest technical problem that you had to solve to make this feel like real and
Yeah.
immersive?
You know, I guess there's very challenging problems on both the business and the product side. Like, first of all, one of the biggest challenges was just understanding the data and getting access to it. Like, full credit to one of my co-founders, Anthush. He
Mm,
he had this idea early on. It's like, okay, initially we thought we might just collect the data ourselves. We'll do the computer vision. But Anthush was like, you know what? This data is already out there. Let's go find it. Let's go try to get it. And I think that was like a huge challenge early on, was just how do we unlock door number 1 so we can build the product and even get to door number 2, right? So that was
right.
a huge challenge on the business side. And I think on the product side, a lot of it's been lessons around scaling hardware,
Mm,
optimizing hardware, building an experience that is, this is a little technical, but localized.
mm,
Like a good example is everyone's familiar with the haptics in their cell phone, right? It's
yeah.
like you get a text and your phone buzzes. And what you'll notice actually about your phone is that when it vibrates, it's the entire device, right?
Mm,
And what's different about our technology is that when you're feeling a vibration on the surface of our device, you're feeling it in a pinpoint area. And
mm,
that's really hard to do, because vibration doesn't want to be isolated. It wants to travel everywhere. It wants to vibrate.
right.
So
Right.
I think that was a really fascinating and super challenging aspect, but we've solved it pretty well.
Nice. Nice. Awesome, man. This is super fascinating. I mean, uh, now jumping back to the GTM, uh, how did leagues and teams respond to you guys initially? Like, was there acceptance? Was there like skepticism?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it was, people were hesitant. partly because it was untested. Like, I think sports teams and clubs and leagues are often risk averse, right? They
Yeah.
want to adopt leading solutions that have been truly tested and verified and adopted widely. And that makes it hard to break through and hard to start something new. And I think what it took early on was just, how do we make it as easy as possible for teams to say yes? And
Oh,
what
yeah.
that looked like, what that looked like for us was just pilots. It's like,
Mm.
after we were able to, I think, demonstrate the value, which everyone could understand, but they
Mm.
hadn't yet observed in their own venue or seen us prove at the level that I think they wanted to see it proved. So being able to demonstrate that in a pilot setting where the stakes are lower, right? There's no PR consequences if this goes poorly. You don't ever have to talk about it, right? This could be a horrific test. It could go terribly, and you never have to talk about it. And yes, you've left a bad imprint on a few fans who tried it out. But thankfully, that wasn't the case, right? Like, fans loved it, and I think the team
Right.
saw that fans loved it, and they saw the immediate impact that it was having on everybody. And
Nice.
I think seeing that just unlocked it for them, and we just saw that begin to domino across leagues. So it wasn't even just within one league. It was everybody. It's like like I said, we're getting inbounds, all the time from new clubs that are seeing our work, whether it's in their own league or another, and yeah, seeing the vision.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, what was the first sport that you guys unlocked?
Well, from a development point of view, we actually started with tennis, and
Oh,
that was for a couple of reasons. One, it was because it was my favorite sport, so I'm a huge
wow.
tennis fan. But
Right.
beyond that, you can also think of it like, Pong was the first video game. It's
Yeah.
uh it's kind of like that in that it's a simplified game. There's two
Right.
players, the ball's going back and forth. So it was like the perfect sport to start with, but
Yeah.
ultimately we took something more of an opportunistic go-to-market approach where we said, you know what? We don't know who's going to say yes first. We don't know which league, we don't know which teams. But
Mm.
let's create a general enough product that can service these different sports and
Mm.
market it and see who's going to adopt first. So, I mean, we're so grateful, still a valued customer of ours, Portland Trailblazers in the NBA.
Oh, nice.
They were our first customers. So, going all the way back, I mentioned that pilot, they were the first pilot. So, we did a pilot in 2023, 2024. That worked into the next season where we did the full season. And now this is our second year with them.
Awesome. I think as a potential investor, one of the things that I mean, I know from my friends in the community that they are like, as you said, right? Hardware is hard. So I mean,
Yeah.
investors want to tend to stay away, I would say, but not entirely in sports tech because you also have the wearables and the IoT devices. So that we are more used to seeing the plethora of options of investments which are hardware centric. But you are in a way at the intersection of creating a category,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost a category defining or category creating hardware product, which also has sports media. It also has a software element to it. How do you currently use AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're starting to use it more and more. But
Hmm.
how we have currently used it is in the creation of our audio broadcasts. So, zooming way back to the beginning of our conversation, I mentioned, okay, broadcast is currently concentrated towards visual. Like, that's where most media is today. Then there's audio, which has a sliver. Radio is still a large
Hmm.
portion. And
Hmm.
then there's us, this tactile category, which you're right, it is new. It's something that people have not really done before.
Hmm.
And what we're doing is we're really focused on the tactile and the audio portion. And in part of that, we've created our own audio broadcast from the data.
Hmm.
So in the same way that we create haptics from that rich data from the leagues, we also create an audio broadcast. And this is right now, it started as very simple, right? It's generative in the sense that it's text to speech,
Hmm.
but we're starting to build that out further and consider, what would it look like to build a full audio commentary based on that data? What does it look like to personalize a broadcast based on that data? So there's a lot of opportunities we see, and that's where we're starting. But I think, we're bullish on AI in the long term, but we're also like super focused on executing our current roadmap.
Yeah, sounds like it, because I mean you have demand from other sports. You might need to customize this on a case by case basis, and of course you have the moving pieces of in venue versus in home. So I understand.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone on our team feels like we've got our hands full for sure. But I mean,
Yeah,
we're excited about it.
that's super exciting. Good problem to have.
It is.
Um, where do you believe, Jared, the long term value and moat will evolve to, or will the current product stay the way it is for the foreseeable future? What's the product roadmap look like?
Yeah, in terms of product roadmap, we're developing more and more into this optimized form factor as well as assembly. So you mentioned, hardware is kind of been, can be an ugly area for investors. People don't want to touch it. And look, we totally understand that. Even as someone, I studied industrial design, so I'm a product guy to the core. Like I also get it. And I think we've done a lot to de-risk that and continuing to de-risk that through, contract manufacturing, through optimization of our hardware.
Hmm.
And we're seeing that reflecting in the cost as well. It's really optimizing for the long term for scale.
Hmm.
So I think that's where we're focused on the hardware side and on the development. But in terms of a moat, I think how we really think about it is our moat is the combination of two or three really important things. Because absent one of them, you don't have a full product, right? So you could think about it as there's the data, there's the haptics, and there's the community. And you take out any one of those and it no longer works, right? So like,
Hmm.
someone may be able to build hardware that's similar to us, but then it's the question of, well, do they have the market to
Hmm.
market it to? And do they have the data to create that experience? So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem of you really need all of these ingredients. And I think we're doing our best to accumulate a strong position and also a strong understanding of those moats and how they work together. So I think I think we're leading experts in that area, and we'll continue to build that advantage.
That's nice. And in terms of international expansion, I mean, you guys are focused primarily on the US. I mean, US is the largest sports market. We all know that. But I mean, do you have plans to go across the ocean on the other side of the world, or?
Yeah, we certainly do. We envision it. This is a global product. It's not meant to be concentrated in one market or another. And I think one of the beautiful aspects to that actually is the format, right? Like
Mm.
touch is universal, right? It crosses language barriers, it crosses culture barriers. Like everyone understands that language. So it does
Mhm.
actually make for a more seamless transition, I think, between markets of being able to adapt the product, right? It's more of it's more on the audio side and the UX side of adapting that
Right.
for different languages and cultures. But on the haptic side, it's pretty cool to see that does reach people. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're excited about it, but it's kind of a similar answer to, we're really focused right now. Like I despite all of our widest ambitions, it's like, what are we going to accomplish in the next quarter? It's like, what
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks look like? Let's get it done. Like
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
one of our mentors, he put it this way. I remember early on, it's like, there's always more to do and you got to earn the right to do it.
Nice.
So
Nice.
execute the thing that you're doing well right now and earn the right to do other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's well said. And then final question. This has been a fantastic podcast, Jared. Thank you. But last question. I mean, in terms of the way you look at the company 5 years from now, what form factor would it be in? And then, I mean, I guess it's a tough question, but if you were to look at, let's say, 3 years from now, what fundamentally will change or can change in terms of the way sports organizations and fans look at a company like OneCourt?
It's a great question. It's a big question. I think, for one, in this is another accessibility mantra, but we like to think about designing for one as a starting point for designing for many. And it's often the case that products that are designed well for a really niche targeted group end up driving value for so many other audiences and fans. And I think we're even starting to see that even with our narrow work to date. Like, I think we're starting to see that broaden. So I think in 3 to 5 years, it really does speak to our vision of sports are for everyone, right?
Mm.
I think for organizations, it's valuable to think about who is in my community. And when I say community, I mean everyone, not just who's in my current audience group, but who's in my community, and how can we reach those people and bring everybody into the action that wants to be there, right? So
Right.
I think there's a lot of opportunities to create different fan personas, different types of broadcasts, different types of media that can reach people in a way that resonates with them and in a way that's accessible to them. So I think that's where we're headed, and I hope that we can play a huge part in building that world. So, yeah.
Awesome. Sounds super exciting, man. Kudos to you and the team for putting this all together. It sounds like a great problem to solve. We all start with ideas to solve problems, but then execution is key. So
Yeah.
kudos to you guys for having executed really well. Love the focus on focus that you
Yeah.
guys have. So that's great. But have a fantastic 2026, and thank you for your time, Jerred.
Hey, thanks so much, Vin. Happy to catch up and talk soon.
Thank you.